I'm here with Francois Gossieaux, one of the presenters at this year's DSCC. Francois, fantastic job. Really loved what you had to say. You had just so many amazing points that we won't be able to get through all of them. So I wanted to start with one of them, which was the whole concept of being in the market mind versus, I believe it was the social mind, and how people make decisions. I love the examples that you used. Talk about that a little bit and the implications for what it means for businesses as they innovate.
So a lot of behavioral economists are actually talking about that, and the terminology that I'm using comes from Dan Ariely, who is a behavioral economist at Duke, and he talks about the fact that we evaluate things in one of two frameworks, either social framework or market framework. A social framework is, you know, you're my neighbor, your back hurts, they're coming to sand your floor, and you're calling me saying, hey, can you come and help me move some furniture? Feels warm and fuzzy, you know, I don't want you to come and move my furniture right back, right? A market framework is if I come to work for you, and we're going to negotiate a contract, and it's sort of bounded. We're going to talk about money, we're going to talk about IP, we're going to talk about hours. You know, it's bounded, it's cold, it's calculated. And one of the things you have to do is always try to tap into people's social framework rather than their market framework. And so I used an academic example this morning, but maybe I'll use two other ones now. One of them is another example that Dan Ariely did, which is in the United States, most daycare centers have a penalty if you pick up your child late. And it's per minute. It's actually a lot of money. In Israel, they don't have that. So what he did is he went to Israel, and in a daycare, he started instituting a penalty per minute for people that were late. Well, guess what happened? You know, people were later than they were before the penalty. And the reason for that is because when there is no penalty, people evaluate being late in a social framework. It's really disrespectful to be late. Once you put you attach money to it, then it becomes just a calculation. Oh yeah, this is worth $60 for me, right? The thing is, once you go to a market, once you get people to evaluate something in a market framework, you can never go back to a social framework. Because he took away, you know, the penalties, and all of a sudden, you know, people didn't come back to the previous norm. They continued being as late as when he instituted penalties. Another example that we talked about was, I forget which book I read that one in, but it was Switzerland after World War II. And so what they did is the Swiss government went to the citizens and they said, look, you know, World War II was horrible, right? We have to become more independent from the rest of the world, not less, and therefore we have to become a nuclear nation, right? And so they went and they campaigned, you know, we have to become a nuclear nation. The downside is there's a couple of communities that will have to live next to a nuclear dump, and so they said it's a patriotic thing to do, take one for the team, you know. So they went and campaigned, and then they went for a referendum, and they won by 50-something% of the vote. I don't remember exactly. So they won by a small margin, but they won. And then somebody in government said, you know, let's go back to those people and let's offer them $3,000, the equivalent of $3,000 for the rest of per year for the rest of their lives. And they went back to a referendum. This time they only got 16% of the vote. They upped that money to the equivalent of, I think, about $8,000 a year, and they switched 2 votes. So what happened there is that, you know, in the first case, they evaluated in this social framework. Yes, we'll do what's a patriotic thing to do. We'll take one for the team. In the second case, they evaluated the market framework. For $3,000 a year, I'm not going to live next to a nuclear dump. That's not worth it, you know. And so companies, when they leverage the social, they always should try to tap into the social framework of people and not the market framework. Now, in business, you have a difficulty in the sense that you mix both of them up. Most companies pay their people and they give them bonuses and all of that. So, but you can still find, you know, you can still tap into people's social framework even at work. So I'll give you an example. There are people that go to, you know, customer service people that go to work just because they're getting a salary and a bonus, and you know, they can pay for their passion after work with that money, right? But there's other people that wake up in customer service every morning just driven to wow the customer, right? That passion that they have and that they share with other people that want to wow the customer is a social contract that they have with one another that is much stronger than a market contract that they have with you. And that's what you need to tap into.
I mean, I think that's an amazing examples, and I've seen similar things at play when I worked in Formula One. For example, you're talking about employees. The people there actually made less money than the people who worked in the car manufacturing plants around the corner, yet they would work longer hours and they would never leave their job. So it's the context of what they were doing that was more important than the content. So now what's interesting though is after, so I've been doing these videos for the past couple of days. Yep. First day, we asked people their social, how would you like to be videotaped to contribute to the blog? Yep. And we got some people participating. Well, I thought this morning we'd give them like a little bit of an incentive, so I offered my book. Yep. But then I heard your speech and I'm thinking, did I make the right decision or wrong decision? You actually, when I mentioned this to you, you had an interesting perspective.
Yeah, so Dan Ariely actually did a test whereby he asked a group of students to come and help him. And the help was, you sat in front of a computer for 5 minutes and there was a square and a circle. You take the circle, drop it in the square, they would disappear and a new circle and a square would appear. And you would do that for 5 minutes. And the first test, what he did is he said, the first group, he said, can you come and help me? It's busy work, but please help me. I'll explain it to you later. The second group, he says, I'll give you $5, come and help me. The third group, he says, I'll give you 50 cents, come and help me. So what happened is the people that got $5 did 50% more circles and squares than the people that got 50 cents. The people that got nothing did 30% more circles and squares than the people that got $5. So in this case, the people that got $5.50 evaluated in their market framework, right? For $5, I can do that. For 50 cents, a little bit slower. If it's to help the professor, I'm going to give it all my best, right? And then he changed the test, and he basically told the first group the same thing that he did in the previous test. The second group, he gave them a box of chocolate, and the third group, he gave them a Snicker bar, okay? And he ran the test again. And this time, he got the same results for all three groups. Then he ran the test again, except this time he told the people that got the box of chocolate, here is a gift for you, it's worth $5. And the people that got the Snicker bar, he said, here is a gift for you, it's worth 50 cents. And he got back to the first results. So if you gave them a gift without associating a value to it, it worked. If you gave them a gift and you associated the value to it, it reverted back to the market framework, which I thought was fascinating. It's always something that I'm thinking about when I see giving gift cards as a gift. It has a value on it. Is that as valuable as sending someone a $25 gift card on Amazon? Is that as powerful as sending someone a $25 book? It'd be interesting to find out.
Well, it raises two questions in my mind. One is, where did you find a Snickers bar for 50 cents? Because I haven't found that anywhere. But it also actually explains something which we've always found, which is when we're trying to incent people to participate in innovation efforts, if we gave them points which could be converted into gifts, that was encourage people to some degree. But when we gave them what we call priceless awards, like dinner with the CEO, that always encouraged things because there was no price on it. So it had a completely different mindset on it. So fantastic.
And the other thing that it did, a dinner with the CEO, touches on another human 1.0 characteristic, which is status. We love status. I had dinner with the CEO. You didn't.
And there are so many other things you talked about this morning or this afternoon. I would love for you to just share maybe what's the one thing we didn't cover here that you think everybody needs to know because most people get it wrong when it comes to innovation.
The biggest mistake I think that companies make is that it's a double mistake actually. They put their products at the center of everything that they do, and they think of us as market segments, right? So I'm 6'2", I've got brown hair, green eyes, whatever. It doesn't tell you anything about who else I want to hang out with, right? Instead, what they should focus on is they should focus on our tribes, right? Tribes is the second most ancient human social instinct. First one is based on kinship. I'm going to give up my life to save my children. We still live in tribes, except we're not born in them. We choose them based on shared passion, shared pain, or shared interests. And we belong to multiple tribes, and we were much more nomadic. We're part of the Star Trek tribe one day, and next year we're not, or some of them still are, even after all the years. But so what you need to do when you're trying to find information about when you try to create social communities from which to extract information about innovation, you need to think about your tribes, and you need to put those tribes, shared interests, shared passion, shared pain, at the center of the effort, not your products or your company.
Do you find it surprising that companies still focus on their products and organization structures, and why do you think that is?
I find it really surprising. I really do find it surprising because there are companies that do it right, and when they do it right, they get game-changing benefits. And also I find it surprising because we're still accepting the fact that, what's the number now these days? 80% of new products fail? I mean, that was the same number 10 years ago. How come we haven't done anything about that, right? I mean, what companies don't realize is that, coming back to the concept of tribes, one of the things you need to understand about your tribes is their culture, right? And companies spend no time trying to understand their customers' cultures nor their employee cultures, right? And then they roll out strategies, right? They roll out new products or they roll out innovation strategies internally, not knowing whether there's the right culture for that kind of change. And of course, it's going to fail. You can't roll out strategy without first understanding culture. Culture trumps strategy. And to understand culture, you need to understand tribes.
Francois, thank you so much. And again, congratulations on an amazing presentation today. And I look forward to continuing the conversation.
Thank you, Steve. Coming from you, that means a lot.